Thank you for joining us today. I call the February 20th meeting of the Human Rights Commission to order. Let's begin with an introduction of commission members, starting with Xavier.
Xavier Welty, Commission Member. Tom Bassa, Commission Member.
Cody Severson, commission member.
Carolyn Beecraft, Commission Member.
Zoe Apsey, Commission Member.
And I think we have Saku online.
Yes, Saku Sirleaf, Commission Member.
Perfect, thank you. And then I'm just gonna, as a one-off, lead the meeting today as Saku is virtual, and our other two executive members were not able to be here today. We do have a quorum though, so I'll go into the next two things. In terms of the agenda, Rachel, I don't think is able to be here today, and she had agenda item. She did have an agenda item, so I'd like to push that to the back, just after the MLK Day prep or social media engagement. If that's, sorry, nope.
So her item is number 9. So
Okay.
it is towards the bottom. It's the nonprofit discussion.
Okay, so is that fair to say that if she does make it here, we'll still go over it, but if she doesn't, we'll
We'll
kick it back
just
to next
push
week?
it to next month.
Okay, perfect. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda then in that way?
So move.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, I have the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is to approve the minutes of the January 16th, 2025 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much. So moving into our next item is the legislative update. I believe that we have Christina Sambor representing the North Dakota Human Rights Coalition online. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. All right, you have the floor.
All right. Well, thank you for having us today. I have shared through Canva, you should be able to see up there a sheet that we have of our legislative updates from the session so far, and this is current as of yesterday. So I'm sure we would be happy to share this in an accessible form for the committee going forward. But just as by way of a brief introduction, my name is Christina Sambor. I'm an attorney here in North Dakota. I've been lobbying at the state legislature since 2015, so this is my 6th session at the North Dakota Legislative session, and I historically have advocated at the session on behalf of human trafficking victims, unhoused people, the Human Rights Coalition, Fair Housing, and this session also ACOG, which is the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So kind of just general human rights type advocacy at the legislature for the last 11 years, or 10 years. So that's kind of just a bit of background about me. And this is my 2nd session lobbying on behalf of the Human Rights Coalition. So essentially what we have for updates here, and I'll have you just scroll, Brian, through this kind of briefly to give them an overview. So we've got the updates divided into a few sections and kind of cruise through this. Just go down quickly through the whole thing just to show there's a lot here. And so I know that you all have other business to take care of today. So I'm just kind of giving you a sense that there's quite a bit of information on this document. Like I said, I'll be happy to share it with you so that if anyone wants to take more time and read through this in more detail, you have the ability to do so. There is a note on top of this document that, essentially mentions that, these bills are complicated. There's obviously a lot to understand about any one piece of legislation, but these are kind of provided for, to flag them for you in terms of the topics, and also has a current status of each of them. And then on that left column there with the bill number and link, there are hyperlinks there, which will take you into the legislative website where you can actually see a bar of different actions. So it'll show kind of the versions of the bill, what amendments have happened. It'll show what hearings have taken place, what actions have taken place on the legislation. And then there's also testimony tabs to review testimony that's been offered in favor of or in opposition to a particular piece of legislation. So if you want to scroll back up to the top, I'll kind of just walk down through these and kind of hit some high points. So one of the bills that is proceeding through, so we're just approaching the end of legislative session and looking at what's called crossover. So that is when all of the bills that were introduced on the House side, if they pass, get moved over to the Senate side for review, and vice versa on the Senate side. And so you'll see in here that under that current status, you'll be able to see, some of these bills which have already been defeated by one House, which means that it's done. So in order to pass, through legislative session all the way to the governor's desk, a bill would have to pass the House and then the Senate, or first the Senate, then the House. So any of these bills that failed already at this point in the House of Origin would not be then passing on for consideration or further consideration during the session. But one of the bills that is getting our attention certainly, and you'll see it's at the top there, 1144, received a due pass received passing votes in the House 73 to 18. This bill is an amendment to existing law dealing with the usage of pronouns and bathroom facilities within school districts. The amendments to the bill have essentially prohibited the use of gender neutral, right? So anyone of any gender can use the bathroom in a architectural format that has what we call closet style bathrooms. So bathrooms where each individual stall completely closes, and then there's kind of a central sink area. And so anyone would be able to use that bathroom. This bill would effectively ban that type of construction in schools in an effort to ostensibly prevent transgender students from using bathrooms that align with their gender identity. So as you can imagine, that bill from our perspective has a lot of consequences, whether intended or unintended, on schools' abilities to create facilities that meet their needs. So on this particular bill, we've had some perspectives from school districts and architecture. I'm not sure, I guess, if it's an architectural firm, but anyway, Representative Foss testified on the House side about kind of the consequences this could have on schools. So that one is continuing to be something we're going to be working on after crossover, and certainly could have an impact on a lot of different districts. There's also provision within the same bill that would require the AG's office to investigate any alleged uses of basically formal, kind of express or informal guidance around the use of preferred pronouns. So there's a lot in that one bill. So the next bill there, 1181, is another bill that would that again relates specifically from my perspective to efforts to legislate around transgender identity in our state, would define gender in the Century Code as equating sex with gender. I won't get too far into this other than to say that it would, I'm not giving legal advice, but as an attorney, when I look at changing the definition of gender in the Century Code, would have a lot of bizarre impacts on the Century Code. For example, if you're banning gender affirming care, but the word gender means sex, then you're essentially banning sex affirming care. Natal sex affirming care. So meaning, if gender only means sex, gender affirming care then only means care that affirms your sex is assigned at birth. So anyway, lots to unpack there. Yesterday, actually, I think it was yesterday, House Bill 1217 passed the House and is a bill that would decriminalize the transmission of HIV, which was a really important, landmark. This bill has been introduced many sessions. And is an important, I think, advancement of the rights of HIV positive people in North Dakota to not experience unfair criminal consequences given medical advances and things that have changed in that environment. If you want to scroll down to the next page, and if anyone wants to interrupt me, let me know. I'm trying to go really quickly through this in an effort to not take up more of your meeting that you'd like me to, but if anybody wants me to stop, slow down, anything like that, you let me know. The House Bill 1430 is another bill that has not yet, I believe, had, as of yesterday, had any committee action, but it's a bill that would essentially override the determination by the Social Work Ethics Board that would ban conversion therapy in North Dakota. It's an effort to change state law to acknowledge conversion therapy as ethical. This bill is in conflict with another bill that would enter North Dakota into a social work compact that would allow social workers licensed in other states to practice in our state, which is a nice economic development bill, I think, and a good thing for social workers. And so if the state were to pass this bill making by law conversion therapy an ethical practice in North Dakota, it would put us in contravention of the compact and complicate or potentially eliminate our ability to join that compact. So that's one thing to know there. Scrolling down, House Concurrent Resolution 5001 that's there was withdrawn, but a similar concurrent resolution passed the House yesterday that would urge the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Obergefell v. Hodges, which, of course, found a constitutional right to marriage for gay couples. So that particular resolution failed. It was reintroduced in, I believe it's 3013, House Concurrent Resolution 3013. So yeah, scrolling down, you'll see Senate Bill 2244 would require parental permission for students to participate in LGBTQ plus topics in school. A bill relating to the definition of marriage and recognition of marriage outside of a man and a woman that did in fact fail the Senate. And so that bill would have actually changed the definition of marriage in North Dakota to not only apply to men and women. Senate Bill, so scrolling down to page 4, Senate Bill 2307. This is a library obscenity bill again, so more book banning efforts during the session. Then if you could scroll to page 5, this is kind of then other bills concerning rights. This is just the House Bill 1012 is just the general funding provisions for the Department of Health and Human Services. Always a monster budget, has a lot of impacts on a lot of different people. House Bill 1145 had a due pass. I think that bill actually should be updated. It did fail in front of the House, and that bill would have required posting of the 10 Commandments to be posted in all classrooms. And so that bill did fail in the House. 1150 requiring observation of the Sabbath. That would again be the blue light law, and that failed with only 4 yay votes. So would have returned us back to some of those previous laws that required businesses to be closed until noon on Sunday. If you could go down to page 6, bills that would affect the right to wear masks in large gatherings, such as at protests, passed the House. A bill, House Bill 1273 there would have made hate speech a protected form of speech, and that actually did fail in the House. A bill for creation of a housing development fund, that's had committee action. I don't believe a floor vote yet. House Bill 1373, some of you may have seen in the news, that would have been what was referred to as a personhood bill. That would have defined a person as including an unborn child, meaning and further defined that as attaching that status at the moment of fertilization. So that would have had the impact of banning IVF and also charging anyone who allegedly terminated a pregnancy from fertilization forward with intent to terminate the pregnancy to be able to be charged with murder. That received a do not pass and did fail on the House floor. So that bill is also dead. Going to page 7. A bill that would place certain health information such as vaccine status under protection. A bill limiting requiring landlords to provide proof of background check done on applicants. another bill that passed in the House would require landlords to not let heat go between 68 degrees. That bill has passed. We'll be moving on to the Senate. If you go to page 8, there's been a lot of energy and work around the provision, expanding the availability of free meals to students K through 12 in North Dakota. So that's another one to watch. There's lots of different organizations working together on that bill, and there's different versions of kind of the same idea in different forms right now. So obviously in the second half of legislative session, that's kind of when some of these things will get sorted out. If there's competing bills, which one's going to move forward, which one isn't, some of those things we'll be moving into. Both 1477 and 1478 were introduced by Representative Hansen, seeking to protect access to both contraception and assisted reproductive technology in the Century Code, and both of those bills failed. There was no financial attachment to either of those bills. It was simply more of a policy statement protecting the rights of North Dakotans to access contraception and assisted reproductive technology.
Christina, can I ask you a quick-
In addition,
can I ask
yes,
you a
of
quick
course.
question?
Yep.
You had mentioned a few ago that there was a bill about the temperature in a house like not going under 68 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
That's neat. How does that how? So that would be in Century Code. Is there any language yet on how that works? Like, that goes out to cities? Like, how does that How does that actually get managed? Is there any language on that yet?
I'd be happy to share it's a concurrent resolution
Okay.
that would propose an amendment to the Constitution. So that then brings about, that whole process.
Okay.
But, I'm sorry, I'm looking at a different one. That's for moving the constitutional, that link's actually broken. I'll have to get you another. Sorry.
Okay,
let me
no
look here.
worries.
I was clicking on the link in our document, and it's actually that link that's for House Bill 1496 is taking me to actually the link to a different bill, which is the concurrent resolution to move the threshold for referred measures to 60%, which is a problematic bill. But give me 1 second here to pull up the correct bill so that I can give you accurate information.
Yeah. I think Cody Schuler is also going to help us out with that. Yes.
Okay, so essentially it would
Christina.
amend, it would amend landlord obligations in the Century Code to create a legal duty for them to provide reasonable heat between October and April, meaning a temperature not less than 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So essentially it would add to the legal obligations of landlords in terms of their legal duty to maintain premises, that temperature maintenance is part of their obligation under state law.
Okay. She said 68. Yeah. No.
Not less than 68 degrees.
I think since it's outside of our procedure, I think there might be I don't know.
Is Cody there? Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep. Okay. So I apologize for going outside of procedure with this and having a conversation with Cody as well.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. Hey, Christina.
hi, Cody.
I actually worked on this bill with Cody Schuler, American Civil Liberties Union, and I worked on this bill with Representative Foss. He was the sponsor. It actually came out of Fargo here. So in state law already, reasonable temperature must be maintained for individuals in apartments where they don't have control of their own heat. So picture that older home that has been converted into apartments, and maybe the thermostat's downstairs and the upstairs apartment, you actually don't have control of your heat or the actual temperature. A reasonable temperature has already been in law, but that wasn't established with a temperature. And so it was up to the discretion of the landlord as to what was reasonable.
Yeah.
And that has become a dispute for some. It was actually a dispute with a landlord here in Fargo. Representative Foss had a constituent who brought it forward. And actually a lot of states around the country have used this using public housing guidance from HUD, what's a standard for public housing, but also other states such as Minnesota, who I think just 1 or 2 sessions ago actually established this. So putting that time frame around it from October to April as the time frame, and then 68 degrees as a temperature defining what is, quote, reasonable. And if you really want to get into the weeds, the federal government actually defines like heating systems, and there's actually a formula. This is not in state law, but would probably be taken into account should there ever be a lawsuit, that, if the temperature stays at a certain point below, and how that taxes heating systems, and how the reasonable temperature actually can drop between 68 and still be legal. Again, that's not in the law, that's in federal guidance, but it would take into account that piece. So, yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Just for clarification, since Christina wouldn't have had that info. So,
I think it's really exciting that like tenant rights are even like being talked about in that way. That's awesome. Okay. I apologize. Christina, go back to it.
Thank you. And of course, Cody being there. So, many of us I shouldn't say many of us, there's a group of us that work together pretty closely during the legislative session to divide up the work on all these many areas. And so that's great that Cody's there to elaborate on some of that. My focus historically has been more on some of the gender equity issues. So Cody would definitely have some more detail on some of the tenants' rights issues. So if we want to go down then to page 8, we talked about the free meals. I'll wait for a second to catch up. Let me see where you're at on there. 1603. Okay, you're on page 9. So, okay. At the bottom of page 8 there, House Bill 1585, that would require police officers to report people they suspect as being illegal immigrants to Customs and Border Patrol. That bill did fail, 41 to 50. Going to page 9. This bill, I believe, is actually going to be voted on this afternoon, House Bill 1603, a bill that would provide funding for programs aimed at reparation and the safeguarding of Indigenous graves. 1608, the employee version of the previous bill I discussed about observation of the Sabbath, that likewise failed. The House Concurrent Resolution 3003, which I inadvertently clicked into when I was trying to grab you more information on the temperature bill. That resolution would seek to move from a simple majority to a 60% approval or 60% vote to approve a ballot measure. So this would make the process more difficult. This bill is for, and as we've seen throughout the country, these types of bills have increased the threshold to prevent things like, enshrining the rights to abortion care in constitutions in other states. And that's been an effective mechanism in places like Florida, where I think it was 57%. You can look at Cody and see if he's nodding in agreement with me. But I think in Florida, there was a 57% yay vote on enshrining reproductive rights in the Constitution, which failed because of these 60% margin changes to initiated ballot measures. So we anticipate that will likely pass the legislature, and then that in and of itself would have to be voted on through a ballot measure process. House Concurrent Resolution 3020, that was up for a vote, and I believe failed yesterday. A resolution urging North Dakotans to recognize Jesus Christ as King and Lord of our state recently failed. Senate Bill 2030 addresses funding for homeless programs. The next page, page 10, is a bunch of different bills that relate to landlord-tenant. And so I'll just generally direct your attention to that page 10 is a good place to review for many different pieces of legislation, unfortunately, many of which have failed. That would provide additional protections to tenants. Moving to page 11, and we have 13 pages, so we're almost there. Here on page 11, you'll see some information on banning cell phones in schools, which received a do not pass recommendation. Again, another Senate Bill 1272, move in, move out inspections and security deposits, that failed. The Senate Bill 2014 is the bill that would provide funding to HIF, the HIF program that is used to fund a lot of low-income housing access in the state. And then on the last page, page 12, this one has been covered in the media quite a bit, but it's a bill that would require inmates to serve 85% of their sentence and eliminate some other kind of alternative options for the Department of Corrections to have people, spend part of their sentence outside of incarceration towards the end, things like that. So As I mentioned, I would give the caveat that I did at the beginning that a lot of these issues are complicated. There's a lot to know about each of them. Certainly happy to appear before you all down the road if there's a more fine analysis or information you'd like on any one of these pieces of legislation. I'm certainly happy to come back, or Cody and I can come back and provide some more information, but that's an overview. And again, I think this document would be a good resource for you all to be aware of and keep up to date on the Human Rights Coalition sort of assessment of notable bills. Another one that I think I might have skimmed over pretty quickly that will be up this afternoon is one that would give state funding to better equip basically like a search and rescue response for missing and murdered Indigenous people. That's been another really significant bill. And so actually today would be a really good day too if anyone has free time in their afternoon or can multitask to watch the floor session. Because there's several bills this afternoon that are notable that would be worth tuning in for. So with that, I will stop talking and see if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Christina, for that amazing update. Does anybody have questions?
Christina, I don't know if Senate Bill 2180 was included in our listing that talks about public comments, requiring public comments in public meetings.
Let me look. And I apologize because I was kind of cruising through the list in the interest of time. So I'm just scrolling back up to see. And some of this too, I mentioned earlier, and Cody's there so he can speak to this, but we do kind of divide out topics sometimes organizationally as, ACLU has really been focused historically on some of the voting rights type bills. And so that may be something Cody could speak to better if he's still there in the room, because that is not on the NDHRC's list. That's not to say we don't think that obviously disenfranchisement issues aren't an important issue, but sometimes it's just a matter of splitting up kind of, is this something more that ACLU might be tracking as part of more their core issues versus kind of the core human rights issues that we're keeping track of.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Any other questions or comments?
Cody.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation, Christina. I wanted to understand what's the language on the bill for the prevention of use of cell phone in school? Is it in school or in class? What's the language on that?
Give me one moment to pull it up.
Because I
So
realized
that's Senate Bill 2300 is the legislation. Another thing that I think would be helpful too for the committee is just kind of, and I'd be happy to provide any of that information, but just kind of show you the legislative website and how, where you can access these things too, to see kind of what the current status is. Like I said, we'll be working to update our list, but of course, may not be tracking everything that's of interest to this committee. So it's like a 1 1/3 page bill, essentially saying that a personal electronic device, which is a device that's capable of transmitting voice, text, or data, including a cell phone, tablet, laptop, computer, smartwatch, or gaming device, shall be placed in secure containers to store each personal electronic device during the duration of a school day. That the students shall turn off their electronic device upon arrival at school, place it in a secure container, and it must remain there for the school day. That the student may maintain possession of the container. At the end of the school day, the personal electronic device may be released to the student. School principal may permit a student to access their personal electronic device for a medical reason if the parent or guardian provides the student, if the parent or guardian of the student provides the principal documentation certified by a medical provider demonstrating the medical necessity. And then there's almost a $2 million appropriation for this bill that it would be estimated to cost DPI to provide personal containers for everybody's cell phones. So that bill, looks like it failed the Senate.
Okay.
2 yeas, 45 nays. So there you go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the last comment, because that was going
Yes.
to bring up my next question, whether it passed, failed, or still under review. But yep,
Yeah, so it
Thank you,
failed, which
Kristen.
means it's done. It's not going to go to the House. It failed to pass the Senate. So
yeah, necessarily. There's so many problems with that bill. Thank God
Yeah.
it failed.
All right, thank you, folks. I think in the interest of time, we would like to go on to the next item. But Christina, if you wouldn't mind just still like sending the information over to the executive committee, Saku, Brenda, and them, to make sure that that's just distributed out to the rest of the commission, that'd be fantastic.
sure, happy to do that. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to log off. So everyone have a good day.
All right, take care.
Bye bye.
Okay, so the next item that we have up on the agenda is I think, strategic planning date update.
So I did send out a doodle poll. I only got 6 of the 11 committee members responded to my doodle poll. And so Courtney Crombeck has offered, she's got some training in strategic planning, so she has offered to kind of help lead that. Right now, the only day that had aligned I'd originally sent it out for the week of February 24th and the week of March 3rd. And the only day that had aligned would have been that 2/24. But of the 11 members, I really only have 3 that can make it. And so my thought is I will send out more doodle polls for the week of March 10th, 17th, and 24th. I really need to get a response to understand who can come and who can't, so that we can figure out what works.
I think that's fair. Yeah. And I apologize. I don't even think I saw the email, so I'm sorry that I don't think I responded to it.
That's
Yeah.
okay. We'll get it the next round.
Yeah.
So if everyone can watch for it, I will get it out yet this week. And so if you'll really watch for it and get that information back to me, I would greatly appreciate it.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Okay. So the next.
And
Sorry.
my comment on that email was maybe if we can add a virtual component, because if people think it's only in person, then maybe they're afraid they might not have the time to attend. But if we can attach a virtual component to it, so we do it both, it's in person and virtual, I think maybe we might have more people signing up on that. But I hope and pray that everybody keep an eye out for that email as Brenda sets it out again. We got to get this going. It's very necessary, and thank God that Courtney is available to facilitate that, and we still need any other person, any professional to work along with Courtney to be able to pull this off. But it's very necessary. We got to get this taken care of.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. We'll look at doing that. Number 6, the MLK Day recap. Who is taking? Did you want to provide a recap? or
Yeah,
who
I was
wants-
thinking maybe Zoe could just do a little recap,
Fabulous.
and
Thank you,
any
Zoe.
feedback, the board, the commission has would be great.
Yeah. It's kind of been a whirlwind. I can't believe, it's already February. I thought it went really well. There was a really good turnout for it being so cold. I do think the human rights ceremony went really well with the placement and having all 3 folks up there and having Human Rights Commission members present the awards and read off little blurbs. And the videos were so great. And just having like CHI brought so many people there to honor their award. So I think overall, I thought it was a big success. Fred and I, the week after, did go to Valley News Live and do an update about MLK Day on their podcast episode. So that was fun to just recap and talk about what we're doing in the community.
I think one thing, we talk about what did we do last year, and I think one of the things Zoe is going to work on is here's what we did, here's what we started. One of the things I think we need to keep this in the forefront of start thinking about what awards do you want to do next year? Because we did think of some really creative things. We just didn't have time to do that. So, I mean, one of the things I think we had talked about was, do we want to do a piece of art that goes to each of the award recipients. So those are things we want to keep on the forefront so that we get out in front and we're ready for next year.
Yes.
I'd just like to give kudos to you and to Zoe and to Fred and all that work went in. I thought it was so much better than the ones I've been to before. I mean, I'm not denigrating what happened before, but I mean, it was professional. The videos were great. The presentation, HRC was represented appropriately in the awards, and just kudos to all.
I do want to do put a plug that there is already a calendar invite for Juneteenth planning starting next
saw
week. I was like, wow, we're jumping ahead. So if any other HRC member wants to be part of the Juneteenth planning, let me or Cody know and we can forward you the invite if you're not on it.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, folks. All right, our next agenda item is going to be social media engagement. Is that something that Brenda wants to head up then?
I think Saku, is this something you want to discuss?
Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Brenda. We did talk to WDOY, and they're still waiting on us. I'm just looking for any commission member who's available. I mean, we can do this, maybe start with once a month or monthly, because we got to get an HRC activity out into the public domain. Right now, we don't have in-person participation that much of the community in HRC meeting. People do follow. They go on social media and watch the YouTube video. Thank God the city have these meetings now on YouTube videos. And I do go there and watch them at times too. So, but we need to get the word out so that the community know what we are doing. If they can come to us, we can go to them. And thank God WDOY is willing to partner with us. I just need availability and we can get that started maybe March. If we can do just once a month or twice a month, we can have different groups of commission members sign up and say, okay, I can be there on this day or I can be there on that day. And we can have various topics that we can talk about that the community needs to know about what the HRC is doing. Instead of waiting for the community to come to us, we can go meet them. That's the main purpose of this. I don't think the community is fully aware of what we do, how we do, for who we do. We do it for the entire community, but yeah, we need to get out there. Is there anybody on the team who will be willing? I mean, during the MLK Day, I know a few of us went to do some of the social media live. Zoe, I think, with John Strine, Commissioner Strine, and then Nancy and myself. But we want more other commission members to be part of this.
I would be interested in maybe doing a meeting once a month or something like that.
Yeah, I'm also open to that. Do you know how long is the radio episode going to run for?
As long as we wanted to run for. It's not just radio. I think it's social media, basically, okay. Facebook and whatever. So we can get that out there. Maybe we can send another doodle poll out and see. I'll talk back with WDOY and see which time they can give us, and then we can send that out to see who will sign up on that, and we can get a ball rolling by March.
I was going to suggest that I think it would be a good idea if we just get one of the polls out to all the members and then they can go ahead and see. So you could see how many people are interested in their availability. And then from there, we could kind of get a good idea of the amount of people who wants to be involved. And then especially with us not knowing the length of each episode or how long each person's going to be presenting, I think we got to kind of get more information about that prior to like us kind of volunteering, if that makes sense. Just because with people's schedules, I think that would be a good idea.
Just getting some topics.
Like topics, So when the poll goes out, a suggestion would be like, what type of topics are we talking about? Are we talking about upcoming events? Are we talking about what concerns? Like, if we can do some type of poll and then have that be like just an agenda of where we're starting from.
For
Maybe
for
Oh,
whatever
go
it's
ahead,
worth, I-
Zoe.
you go first, Cody.
I just thought this would be a great bullet point for the strategic plan
Yes.
today as well. That just having a bullet point of social engagement would be great to have during the strategic planning conversation.
I'm open to that, Cody. If it's something we want to do, we can put a hold on it until after the strategic planning meeting. There's no emergency here, so yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea. But when it comes to topics, I mean, there's so much bordering on human rights that we can talk about. And I'm thinking about, I think we can control the time. We can decide to be on air between 15 minutes and half an hour based on what we have to discuss so that we don't make it too long. Social media, people's attention span nowadays is not that long. And besides that, we're so much inundated with so much information from all over the place. So I don't think anybody wants to sit through a 1 hour social media posting. No, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. We can get that done. Yeah, it's a good thing. Let's take it to the strategic planning meeting and come up with a good resolution on that.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, folks. And so I think that squeeze in Cody and Rochelle here at the end. Let's go over to Cody Schuler with the update on Know Your Rights.
I will keep things quick and brief and let me know. Give me a high sign if you're like, just move along. Yes, so my name is Cody Schuler. I am the advocacy manager for the American Civil Liberties Union of North Dakota, also a Fargo resident, and here today to just, at your invitation, to talk about a little round about Know Your Rights, specifically around immigration issues. So the ACLU, we are a nonprofit, we are nonpartisan, and we work in courts, the legislature, local communities across the state to defend and preserve the individual rights and liberties that the Constitution and the laws of the United States guarantee everyone in this country. That is who we are. A little disclaimer as I go through a couple of points, that is that I'm not a member of ACLU's legal department, nor am I a member of the North Dakota State Bar. So nothing I say today should be construed as any sort of legal advice. However, some of the information I'll be presenting today has been vetted by attorneys. So this is just general know your rights information. On top of that, I would just add to be able to, or add to that, the first part of talking about knowing your rights, particularly around issues around immigration, is that here in the United States, it is illegal for private citizens to provide legal immigration advice unless they are authorized to do so. So in the United States, only licensed attorneys or accredited representatives approved by the Department of Justice can give legal advice on immigration matters. Unauthorized practice of law, which is where this would fall under, can lead to serious legal consequences, including fines and criminal charges. So when folks read a lot about knowing your rights and that kind of thing, and then have someone in their life who might have an immigration issue, and then they chat with them, just citizens need to be, very careful that that they are sharing information and saying, and not actually giving a legal direction or something that could be perceived as such. And in fact, it's just really wise to, whenever immigration issues come up, to direct someone to an attorney. However, private citizens can provide general information, again, directing people to resources such as USCIS.gov as an official government resource, or sharing personal experiences is allowed, and they cannot advise someone, though, how to fill out forms or tell someone what, that you should say this in an immigration interview. I heard this. Those kinds of things also prohibited. So if you're unsure, best practice is to direct questions to a qualified immigration attorney or accredited organization. One of the things to remember here in the Red River Valley and the Fargo area is that a lot of folks who do have immigration issues oftentimes are going to end up dealing with the court systems, the federal systems that may take them to Minneapolis. And so when looking for attorneys, well, we don't have a lot of immigration attorneys here in North Dakota. And so those Minnesota resources are really great. The other thing is because immigration is federal law practice, immigration attorneys do not have to necessarily be practicing in the state that you live. So like I said, we don't have a lot of resources in North Dakota around that. Any immigration attorney around the country is a viable source of information or to be hired to represent you. So just to remember that, that is helpful. But those of us, particularly on this end of the state, Minnesota resources are fantastic and are more plentiful than in our state. So just a couple of things to update what's going on in North Dakota. The ACLU of North Dakota has heard that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, has been active in North Dakota, particularly in western North Dakota in the oil fields, as well as on the Fort Berthold Reservation, which is a part of that oil patch area and has a lot of oil activity and a lot of additional workforce there. That includes immigrant population. We are aware at the ACLU that guidance has been given or is being given, and this is very sort of secondhand information, so nothing is official here, but we have heard or had reports that guidance is being given by some tribal leadership across the country, not just in North Dakota, that it is wise for Indigenous people to keep their state and their tribal IDs on them at all times, their state issued ID, more importantly than a tribal ID, since many of them vary in formats and may not be as recognizable, but the state issued ID would be. And also we are aware of some civil rights leaders across the country and different organizations that are giving guidance to basically any person of color to keep their ID on them as well. This would be for the purpose of not being detained mistakenly by ICE, even if you are someone who is not just a naturalized citizen, but someone who is or here legally, but also someone who has been born and raised here, such as myself, that just because of the color of your skin, that might actually get you detained, and we want to make sure that folks are able to shorten or avoid that detention or that interaction with ICE under the current circumstances. Also, just a couple of things, key know your rights pieces. The ACLU oftentimes provides some key guidance on immigration rights. We have a lot of resources on our websites, which I will be able to share that and some other resources with members of the committee. So remember, those individuals, this goes for many individuals, including those who might entangle themselves with or find themselves entangled with ICE. If approached by ICE or law enforcement, you do not have to answer questions about your immigration status, where you were born, or how you entered the U.S. You can say, "I'm exercising my right to remain silent," and do not sign any documents without a lawyer present. So you have that right to remain silent. Second, you do not have to open the door. ICE agents cannot enter your home without a valid judicial warrant signed by a judge. Sometimes they'll come with what looks like a warrant or might have a warrant that's been issued from the agency, but only a warrant issued by a judge would give them permission to enter your home. If they show up at your home, you can ask them to slide the warrant under the door. If it's not signed by a judge, you don't have to let them in. And then lastly, if you have the right to a lawyer. If you are detained, you have the right to speak with an attorney. However, the government does not have to provide you with an attorney like in a criminal case. And so just remember that you're not going to get provided one, but you do have the right to an attorney, and there are lots of legal aid organizations that can provide that remotely or possibly in person. You can also refuse to sign anything until you speak to your lawyer. It's best to have immigration attorneys' contact information ready in case of emergency. So those individuals who are here legally or are undocumented should keep any sort of documents and different things available, and an attorney's legal aid phone number handy. These rights apply regardless of immigration status, whether someone is documented, undocumented, has a visa, or is legally permitted resident. And the ACLU encourages people to stay informed. If you have access to a Know Your Rights card, we are getting some. They have not arrived yet here that the ACLU produces. And then also, you should prepare a safety plan if you fear detention or deportation. Then lastly, I'll just mention that this is more so for our city folks in the room and for you as an advisory board to the city commission, that when in regard to law enforcement agencies, local police are not required to enforce federal immigration law. The ACLU advises law enforcement that they are not obligated to assist ICE unless there is a judicial warrant, not an ICE administrative detainer. Police departments and sheriffs can adopt sanctuary policies that limit cooperation with ICE, reducing fear among immigrant communities. We have not done that, to my knowledge, in this community. And as you heard from Christina, there has been some work in the legislature around trying to provide that in state law. Either forcing and not forcing law enforcement to participate. Do not detain local law enforcement, do not detain individuals solely for ICE without a warrant. So holding someone on an ICE detainer request without a judicial warrant may actually violate the constitutional rights and expose the department to lawsuits. So the city of Fargo, our law enforcement, Cass County Sheriff, et cetera, any law enforcement in North Dakota, if detaining someone under the ICE detainer request rather than a judge-issued warrant actually would open the department or municipalities to lawsuits. And then lastly, we just want to mention that the protecting the rights of all residents, regardless of immigration status, is an important component of local law enforcement. Local law enforcement should focus on community safety, not immigration enforcement, to ensure that immigrants feel safe reporting crimes. Racial profiling or asking about immigration status can violate constitutional protections under the 4th and 14th Amendments, and it's important to remember that. And then lastly, we just also would, and this is less for you all, but just I want to say it while I have the microphone, that we would also offer, ACLU offers similar guidance for schools. Schools should be safe spaces. The Supreme Court has established that all children, regardless of immigration status, have the right to a public school education, and schools are not required to report students' immigration status to ICE. And ICE cannot enter schools without a proper warrant, again, much like a home. Under ICE's sensitive locations policy, enforcement action should not take place at schools unless there are extraordinary circumstances, such as a criminal threat. So school staff should be demanding warrants before allowing ICE into the buildings. And schools should be protecting student and family privacy. Schools should not collect or share immigration status information. If ICE requests student records, schools should require a subpoena or a court order and notify legal counsel before complying. So that being said, we have heard reports in the region, school districts that will remain nameless, not in North Dakota, that have been doing birth certificate audits to be in compliance with state law. However, they say it's not a part of any sort of immigration issues. However, the timing is a little bit suspect, and so we want to just be reiterating this. So I will, like I said, provide you with a list of resources, including some resources that the Interfaith Alliance of North Dakota has been providing to churches, and a lot of that information would be helpful to you all to share amongst the communities. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Cody. I think that unfortunately right now we do not have the time for that, so I would just encourage everybody to talk to you separately outside of here, the ACLU Connect, with the executive committee if you would like more updates in the coming months as well.
I will, yes, and I'm happy to come back. If I'm not in Bismarck, happy to come here anytime and can join, obviously, online. I will also just hang around afterwards for any questions, but also I know there was a question about Senate Bill 2180, and I'd be happy to answer questions about that as well, that Christina referenced.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
And we don't have any administration update.
Okay. Rachel, do you want to give a few minute explanation of the nonprofit?
Yeah, but were you able to upload even any of the things I sent you? Were you able to get it to media?
I don't remember getting anything, but let me look.
Okay. If that's the case, we could push it to next.
Can we?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, that's fine. That's fine.
'Cause I'd love to give you like 5 or 10 minutes instead
Yeah,
of like
so-
30 seconds.
No, that's fine.
But I'd love for the executive committee to do that. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
And so, hey, Cody.
Yeah. Go ahead, Scoop.
Yeah, since there's a legislative update and Rachel is willing to push her presentation to next month, I mean, thank you, Cody, for such a great presentation. It's very important. This past Sunday, I was in the cities, Brooklyn Park. There was a town hall in Brooklyn Park, Knowing Your Rights, and I was in company with Attorney General Keith Allison, the mayor of Brooklyn Park, Mayor Winston, Police Chief Bruley, and immigration attorney and the member from the Minnesota Senator office. And it was a great time, and they brought the community together so that, this Know Your Right, it was very informative. I think in Fargo, we need to do that because, Cody just did a wonderful presentation, but my question is, how many people are going to hear it? How many people will have access to this meeting or are even watching it? So I think there's a need that we also have a town hall where we can invite the Attorney General for the state of North Dakota, the mayor, the police chief, and other people who can come, and the ACLU, somebody from there, the legal department, so really come and tell us. There are so many questions. People are afraid, parents are afraid. I just heard last night about a little girl, not in North Dakota, 11 years old in 6th grade, who killed herself because her friends in school kept getting in her face and telling her that they were going to make sure her parents were deported and she would be alone here in America, and she ended up killing herself. So these things are very serious. We're talking about people entering churches, hospitals, schools. We need to have a town hall on this.
I think that's fair. Thank you, Suku. That'll be a conversation, I guess, with the executive committee and Brenda going forward then too then. All right. Is there any other business that folks would like to bring up right now? No, I'm hearing none. This meeting of the Human Rights Commission stands adjourned. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for February. No, right. Please hold.
March.
Yeah, March 20th, 2025 at noon. Thank you.